Imagine possessing a weapon capable of teleporting your entire planet.
Right, just a casual, everyday planetary displacement.
Exactly. Like 10 light years in an instant. I mean, the amount of energy required to rip a celestial body out of real space and just, deposit it in another system is staggering.
Oh, absolutely. It's a feat of engineering that completely defies comprehension.
But here is the kicker. Imagine that the only reason you ever actually use this godlike capability is because, well, someone knocked on your front door and you really, really didn't want to talk to them.
Yeah, it's the ultimate manifestation of avoiding your neighbors.
Totally.
Bending the fundamental laws of astrophysics just to maintain a quiet property line.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at the ultimate extreme of material obsession. We're stepping into the grim darkness of the 41st millennium for you today, and we're going to examine a faction that takes the concept of a gated community to just a pathological galaxy-spanning level.
Right, the Necron Dynasty.
Yeah, the Nihilak. And for you listening, this is going to be an exploration of how the things you own can eventually own you.
And our mission today isn't just to list their war gear or map out their territory from the lore.
Right, we're going deeper.
Exactly. We are unpacking the psychology of the Nihilak.
Yeah.
They are defined by this unwavering paranoia, this obsessive hoarding, and an isolationism so extreme it dictates everything.
Like literally everything.
Everything from their grand military strategy down to the very physics of how they engage the enemy. We want to understand the tragic irony of an empire that basically has everything but does absolutely nothing with it.
And to get us into the right headspace for this, I want to pose a thought experiment to you, listener. Imagine being the wealthiest entity in the galaxy.
Which is saying something in this setting.
Oh, massive understatement. Your vaults contain the GDP of literal thousands of star systems. But rather than using that wealth to expand or to invest or to build a golden age or even just to conquer your rivals like, the Sotek or the Mefrit, your entire operational directive is completely different.
Yeah, your sole reason for waking up from a 60-million-year slumber is to lock the front door, turn off the porch light, and just sit in the dark forever.
It's so bizarre. It's a complete inversion of how we typically understand power dynamics in this setting, right?
It really is. Usually when a faction acquires immense power, that power seeks to exert itself outward. It wants to expand borders.
Like the Imperium.
Exactly, or convert populations or harvest souls if you're Chaos or the Drukhari. But Nihilak power is entirely internalized. The pressure isn't pushing outward.
Like a black hole.
Yeah, it's a crushing gravitational pull inward, focused entirely on defense and preservation.
So let's talk about the nature of that preservation, because they are often referred to in the source texts as the bankers and archivists of the Necron race. And when we talk about their hoard, I think it's important to clarify that we aren't talking about, like, piles of gold coins or generic Promethean reserves. The lore describes vaults filled with the plundered riches of 1,000 lost civilizations.
And we really have to consider what constitutes wealth to a race of immortal, soulless machines.
Yeah, they don't care about cash.
Exactly. 1,000 lost civilizations means they didn't just passively collect stuff. They actively cataloged the extinction of countless species.
Oh, yeah.
They took their most valuable artifacts. We're talking maybe tesseracts containing the dying embers of captive stars or crystallized chronologies of species that never evolved.
Weapons that fire black holes, that sort of thing.
Precisely. The Nihilak vaults eclipse the wealth of all other Necron dynasties combined. They essentially own the Museum of the Galaxy's Dead.
But I struggle with that label, Bankers.
How so?
Well, if you are a banker, that inherently implies a system of exchange. Liquidity.
Right, capital flow.
Exactly. You take deposits, you issue loans, capital moves to generate more capital. Yet the Nihilak are an absolute hermit kingdom. Their policy is extreme isolationism. They don't trade. So they aren't actually bankers, are they?
Not in any traditional sense, no.
They're just an interstellar black hole where wealth goes to die. Once it crosses the event horizon of their vaults, it is never seen again.
And that paradox is really central to their identity. In our modern understanding, wealth is a tool. But to the Nihilak, wealth is a static monument.
Monument, yeah.
So when they're called bankers, it's a massive distortion of the concept. It's banking completely stripped of commerce.
Like a vault with no door.
Think of a safety deposit box that is biologically or, well, mechanically hardwired to never be opened. Because introducing trade introduces exchange, and exchange introduces vulnerability.
I see.
Yeah, to a paranoid hoarder, Opening the vault door for a transaction is just an unacceptable security risk.
It actually reminds me of the Winchester Mystery
Oh,
House.
that's a great comparison.
Right, where Cyril Winchester kept building endless, confusing additions and staircases to nowhere and trapdoors, not to actually live in them, but just to confuse the ghosts she thought were haunting her.
Exactly.
The Neolok are trapped in the architecture of their own paranoia. They build these massive, complex vaults just to keep the universe out. And their archivist title is just as cynical, if you think about it.
Absolutely. I mean, an archivist preserves history so future generations can study and learn from it.
Right, for the public good.
But the Neolok preserve history simply so that nobody else is allowed to touch it. It's a total denial of legacy to anyone but themselves.
So if you have this galactic-scale Winchester Mystery House filled with stolen suns and crystallized time, you can't exactly rely on a standard lock and key or like a perimeter fence.
No, definitely not.
This obsession dictates their entire military doctrine, and if you look at how they operate, both in the lore and how it actually translates to their mechanics on the tabletop, it's entirely built around static defense.
That is a foundational rule for them. They do not seek out war.
Which is rare for a Warhammer faction.
Incredibly rare. Expanding territory means stretching supply lines, which means leaving the Horde less defended. But if they are provoked, the response isn't a skirmish.
No.
It's a cold, methodical, total erasure of the threat.
And the tabletop rules actually capture this perfectly. Like, in 9th edition and beyond, their dynastic codes heavily reward a static gunline playstyle.
Yeah, they just dig in.
They get massive buffs for holding objectives and standing completely still in their own deployment zone. It creates this impenetrable wall of firepower, a storm of Gauss fire that just annihilates anything trying to cross no man's land.
And we should break down why Gauss weaponry is the perfect tool for a Hoarder.
Oh, this is fascinating.
Because Gauss doesn't fire a solid projectile that causes explosive kinetic damage. It doesn't create shrapnel.
Right, it's not a bolter.
Exactly. It magnetically flays the target at the subatomic level, stripping them away layer by layer until there's nothing left but dissipated energy.
It's clean.
It's completely sterile. Think about it. If you blow up a trespassing orc dreadnought with a missile, you risk collateral damage to the vault you're defending.
Yeah, shrapnel could chip a 60-million-year-old vase, and you can't have that.
Exactly. But if you hit it with heavy Gauss destructors, the dreadnought simply ceases to exist. It's highly lethal trespassing enforcement that doubles as meticulous housekeeping.
We love that, meticulous housekeeping. But let's look at the macro scale of that defense, because this obsession drives their planetary engineering as well. They have transformed entire worlds into what are known as vault worlds.
Right.
And this brings us back to the hook for today, the teleporting planets. The lore states that these vault worlds contain massive displacement cores that can shunt the entire planet up to 10 light years away just to protect the riches inside.
The energy mathematics of that are almost Lovecraftian.
It's insane.
To move the mass of an entire planet instantly through the warp or via some higher dimensional folding without shattering the crust or crushing the artifacts inside under sudden gravitational shear.
Right, the G-force alone should turn everything to dust.
Exactly. It implies they have mastered inertial dampening on a planetary scale.
Now, I understand the physics are impressive, I do. But I look at the tactical reality of this, and I have to call it out as, well, highly militarized cowardice.
Okay, that's an interesting take.
I mean, the lore always frames them as this unyielding defensive powerhouse. But if an enemy fleet drops out of the warp and your immediate response is to pack up your entire planet and jump 10 light years into the void that's running away...
I see where you're going with this.
Is their military doctrine actually brave, or are they just so fundamentally terrified of losing their stuff that they've weaponized retreating?
Well, you're applying a human martial morality to a species that abandoned it millions of years ago.
Fair point.
To the Adeptus Astartes, for example, retreating is a stain on their honor. To an orc, retreating means you miss out on a good fight. But to the Neolak, concepts like bravery, honor, or glory are just inefficient algorithms.
They don't compute.
They're completely irrelevant.
Because you can't put honor in a display case.
Precisely. Their only metric for success is the physical integrity of the Horde. If standing and fighting risks even a 0.01% chance of a stray macro cannon shell hitting a vault door, then standing and fighting is a strategic failure.
Wow. Even a tiny fraction of a percent.
Oh, absolutely. Teleporting the planet guarantees 100% material retention. In their logic engine, teleporting away is a flawless, dominant victory. They defeated the enemy's intent to steal.
Okay, I hear that. But teleporting a planet is still a reaction. It means the enemy fleet is already in orbit. They've already breached the perimeter.
Yeah.
And a truly paranoid mind knows that any reaction is inherently risky, right?
True.
Like, what if the attackers launch a decapitation strike that takes out the displacement core before it spools up? If your entire identity is based on a zero-tolerance policy for theft, you can't wait for the enemy to buy a crowbar.
No, you cannot.
You have to stop them before they even know they want to rob you.
Which necessitates a shift from purely reactive defense to predictive defense. And this leads us to their crown world of Gaiden, and easily the most macabre asset in their entire arsenal.
The Oracle's gaze. We are jumping from pristine, mathematical, planet-sized teleportation arrays to, a severed head.
It's a very jarring juxtaposition.
Very.
Amidst all this sterile necrodermis and atomic flaying, deep within Gaiden, they keep the preserved head of an ancient alien prophet.
It's so creepy. The lore explains that this head somehow grants them precognitive visions. It allows the Nilek to anticipate threats, prepare their defenses perfectly, and preemptively destroy any interloper before they can become a danger.
Yeah.
It's basically interstellar, militarized Minority Report. They use the visions from this severed head to ensure a Nihilak Lord is never, ever caught off guard.
Astromancy and chronomancy are fairly common among the Necrons, but the Oracle's gaze gives them something far more potent. It gives them perfect operational foresight.
Which is terrifying.
It is. It allows them to map out the causality of an attack centuries before the attacker's species even achieves spaceflight.
But wait, this shatters their entire self-image, doesn't it? They brand themselves as a completely defensive, isolationist hermit kingdom. They supposedly never seek war.
Right, that's the claim.
But if you are using a prophet's head to identify a civilization that might attack you in 3 centuries, and you send a monolith fleet to glass their homeworld today while they are still using bronze spears, haven't you just become the aggressor?
It certainly looks that way to us.
How can they possibly maintain this self-image of being purely defensive when they are committing preemptive strikes, basically genocide, based on Severed Head's visions?
The justification lies entirely in the psychology of the extreme hoarder. To the Nihilak, the intent to steal, or even the future capacity to steal, is mathematically indistinguishable from the act of stealing.
So a thought crime is equal to a breached vault.
Yes, exactly. If the Oracle shows a timeline where a burgeoning alien empire eventually colonizes a system too close to a vault world, the Nihilak don't view their preemptive strike as an unprovoked war of aggression.
What do they view it as, then?
They view it as patching a security vulnerability in the timeline.
Oh my God.
They aren't expanding or conquering that primitive world. They are just doing aggressive temporal housekeeping. They are neutralizing variables.
Neutralizing variables. That's a chillingly sterile way to describe wiping out a species. Like, oh, we didn't start a war, we just pruned a causal branch that threatened the museum?
But it allows them to maintain their internal narrative. They remain the peaceful, isolated archivists, merely maintaining their perimeter against a chaotic galaxy.
And for millions of years, that perimeter actually held. I mean, they had the ultimate hermit setup, they had the atomic flare guns, the teleporting real estate, and a severed head doing background checks on the future.
It's a perfect system.
Right. But the galaxy of the 41st millennium is not a static place. And eventually, the Oracle's gaze had to look into the future and see something so catastrophic, so fundamentally disruptive, that closing the vault doors and turning off the lights just wasn't going to work anymore.
Right, the formation of the Great Rift. The Cicatrix Maledictum.
Now, this is a massive paradigm shift. For you listening, if you are familiar with the setting, you know the Great Rift physically split the galaxy in two with raw warp energy. It's chaos literally spilling into real space.
And chaos doesn't care about heavily armored vault doors.
Not at all.
A demon doesn't need to pick a lock. It just manifests inside the vault and turns the priceless chronologies into screaming meat.
Which is a horrifying image, by the way.
Well, the warp is the ultimate variable. It completely defies the hyperlogical predictive models of the Necrons. The Oracle's visions would have suddenly become just a wall of static and screaming nightmares.
And this external pressure forced the Nihilak to do the unthinkable. They had to completely abandon their core policy of isolation and begin a massive campaign of outward expansion.
But the motivation here is crucial to understand. This is not the Neolac suddenly deciding to reclaim their ancient empire out of some newfound ambition.
Right, it's not a change of heart.
Exactly. It's a purely pragmatic calculation. They realize that to protect the core, they have to infinitely expand the perimeter.
And the method of this expansion is brutally efficient. They didn't send diplomats. They targeted a massive sector of space, cordoned it off, and forced the billions of living inhabitants within that sector to erect geometrically arranged blackstone pylon monuments.
Yes.
They turned entire star systems into a giant warp-dampening bulwark.
We really have to unpack the horror of that logistics operation.
Yeah.
Billions of subjugated, enslaved organics.
Yeah. Humans, Tau, whatever species happen to be there.
But the specific use of the word geometrically in the lore is what makes it so distinctly Necron.
Right, because blackstone pylons have a very specific function. They project anti-warp fields, they calm the immaterium, but why force organics to build them geometrically? What's the significance there?
Because to a soulless machine, raw chaos is countered by absolute rigid order. The geometry isn't just aesthetic, It's a mathematical formula applied to physical space.
Okay, that makes sense.
By forcing billions of chaotic, emotional living beings to build perfectly stark, unfeeling mathematical monuments, they are effectively turning the population's labor into a massive grounding wire for the warp.
Oh, wow.
The organics are no longer civilizations. They are just biological mortar for a cosmic fence.
It's the ultimate subjugation. But they didn't stop there. Expanding the perimeter and building blackstone fences wasn't enough security for them. The Nihilak also took a massive political step.
A very surprising one.
Right. They allied with the last Silent King, Sarek, to oversee this new Necron domination of the galaxy.
And for a dynasty defined by immense arrogance and pride, a dynasty that believes its wealth makes it superior to all others, bending the knee to Zarek is an astronomical concession.
It really is. It's like someone who is so intensely afraid of their house getting robbed that they buy up the entire neighborhood, forcefully evict or employ everyone on the block to act as a construction crew, and build a giant electrified wall around the subdivision.
Great analogy.
Right. And then after doing all that, they hand over the deed to the entire subdivision to a local warlord just to guarantee the warlord's army keeps the wall powered.
Exactly. They haven't been cured of their isolationism. They haven't become a social, collaborative part of the Necron awakening. They've merely outsourced the burden of their paranoia to the Silent King.
They don't want the glory of the Silent King's new empire. They just want the security detail that comes with it. They submit to a sovereign purely to keep the vault doors sealed.
And this reveals the absolute absence of ambition in their soul, or, what's left of it. When an empire expands, it's usually driven by a hunger for more territory, more resources, a better future.
Yeah, standard imperial expansion.
But the Neolac are conquering star systems and subjugating billions, not because they want more, but because they are terrified of having less.
Which brings us to the thematic climax of their entire existence. All of this. The atomic flaying, the planetary teleportation, the preemptive temporal strikes, the enslavement of billions, and the submission to the Silent King, it's all for the sake of material objects. It's all for the Horde.
The source material really concludes with a stark realization of what this dynasty actually is.
Yeah.
The ultimate horror of the Neolac isn't the Gauss fire or the Blackstone pylons.
No.
The true horror is the cold, calculating obsession. It's the psychological prison they have built for themselves.
The lore states that they have sacrificed everything, their flesh, their ambition, and their very future, solely for the preservation of material wealth.
Let's contextualize that sacrifice, because it's massive. During the biotransference millions of years ago, the entire Necrontyr race gave up their biological bodies, their flesh, to become immortal machines.
Right.
Many dynasties did this for power or out of obedience or to win a galactic war.
Yeah.
But for the Nihilak, biotransference was the ultimate insurance policy.
How do you mean?
Well, flesh rots. Flesh gets distracted by hunger or art or love. Flesh eventually dies and leaves the Horde unguarded.
Oh, man. So a metallic guardian, however, doesn't need to sleep. It can stand outside a vault door for 60 million years without blinking.
Exactly.
They shed the very biology that would have allowed them to enjoy their wealth just to ensure the wealth wouldn't be lost.
That's the ultimate tragic irony. To perfectly protect the things you value, you must strip away the emotional and biological capacity to actually value them.
That is so bleak.
It is. They sacrifice their ambition. They no longer invent or create because creation implies change, and change is a threat to the pristine status quo of the archive.
And they sacrifice their future because a future is unpredictable, and you just can't have unpredictable variables near the vault. The lore makes it explicit too. Their isolationism isn't described as a shield, it's described as a prison.
Yes.
The treasures they guard, which used to be a source of immense pride, are now basically a heavy chain binding them to a grim, static eternity.
The dynamic of ownership is completely inverted. The Nihilak no longer own the treasure. The treasure owns the Nihilak.
And this is where a galaxy-spanning sci-fi nightmare holds up a very uncomfortable mirror to us, I think. And I want to turn this directly to you, the listener.
It's very relatable.
It is. The scale is absurd, obviously, but the core psychological warning is incredibly grounded. In our own lives, we hoard wealth or status or material goods to feel secure. We build walls around our assets, thinking that if we just acquire enough security, we'll finally be free to live our lives.
Right.
But at what point do those things stop serving us? At what point do we start serving them?
The paradox of the extreme hoarder is that maintaining the security apparatus becomes a full-time, all-consuming existence. The maintenance of the hoard consumes the very life it was supposed to facilitate.
You spend your entire life patrolling the fence and you never actually swim in the pool.
Exactly.
The Nihilics have survived, mathematically speaking. Their necrodermis bodies still function. But survival without growth, without experience, is just a highly sanitized form of decay. They have ceased to truly live.
They are trapped in amber. They are perfect, indestructible, and utterly stagnant.
So looking back at the massive scale of what we've covered today, we started with a dynasty possessing the plundered wealth of 1,000 dead civilizations. We looked at how their obsession with static preservation birthed a military doctrine of atomic erasure and the mind-bending physics of teleporting vault worlds.
Yeah.
We explored the paranoia of pre-crime warfare using the Oracle's gaze, and how the tearing of the Great Rift forced them to enslave billions to build geometric warp fences, ultimately bending the knee to the Silent King just to outsource their planetary security.
A huge journey.
Right, and it all leads to the horrifying realization that in their quest to protect their material wealth, they sacrifice the very essence of life, becoming immortal slaves to a meaningless hoard.
It's a profound meditation on the cost of absolute security. And to build on that tragedy, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over.
I love this.
The Nihilak sacrifice their flesh, their ambition, and their future to protect their treasures. But consider the nature of a treasure. Whether it's a beautiful artifact, a technological marvel, or a crystallized piece of lost history, if it is locked in a pitch-black vault, perfectly preserved, unspent, untouched, and unseen by anyone for all eternity, is it actually a treasure anymore?
Wow.
Or have the Nihilak, by completely stripping away their own humanity and future to stand guard in the dark, simply become another piece of cold, dead inventory in their own museum?
Becoming inventory in your own museum. That is a heavy, chilling thought to end on. Well, hopefully this deep dive gives you a little perspective on the nature of what we hold on to. Take a look around your own vaults today and just make sure you're the one actually holding the keys. Thanks for listening.